G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle. Today I want to look at this whole impulse purchasing and this internet clout chasing of showing off your purchases. Now, this topic comes from a bizarre place because many people see talking about this topic as some sort of inherently toxic behavior. That you need to just be happy for people that they're making these purchases and enjoying their hobby their way. I see it very, very differently to that. And I want to talk about that today. So I put up a post yesterday showing off basically a couple of people who had purchased just in bulk all of these miniatures because I don't believe it's healthy. There are what we call healthy spending habits and there are unhealthy spending habits. What would be a healthy spending habit? Well, if you buy a house, for example, and you can afford the mortgage on it, or you pay for it outright because you're in a fantastic job and you saved up over the years, whatever it may be. That is what I would consider a healthy spending habit. You should be proud of that, of the hard work required to acquire that house. Buying thousands of dollars worth of Warhammer in one hit, though, potentially not a healthy purchase. Because I showed these three images. There are more images of other miniature collections I can show in a moment, and will, in fact, to demonstrate the point. How many people can honestly drop this amount of money? This army here, for example, is better part of $2,000. This one's also quite up there. Expensive little hordes. How many people can actually say, you know, I was looking forward to the Corn release in 40k so much that I saved up thousands of dollars for this purchase and it had absolutely zero impact on my life to do so. I would suggest it's not really that many people in the scheme of things. Obviously, there are those who have a lot of disposable income, super rich, yada yada. But then you look at the backdrop of where these things are being posted on people's floors, on crappy disposable desks. Do they seem like the sort of people that have the amount of income spare to buy this sort of thing? Now, someone is probably sitting there saying, well, you know, if it makes them happy and they just want to show off their purchase, who cares? I used to think that. I've come around now to thinking that that's actually a very toxic way of thinking, and let me explain my reasoning for that. What concerns me here is that we have people who have potentially developed an addiction to purchasing and purchasing related praise, okay? People have come to identify with the hobby so much that they see it as an extension of their personality, and that by purchasing things and placing them up on the internet, it's a very quick and easy way for them to get a bunch of strangers to give them some sort of gratification. People on the internet give them a like or a thumbs up on whatever respective forum they post this image on, and in doing so, it gives them that dopamine, it gives them the rush, and they're able to say, you know, I feel better about myself. And if they achieve that through purchasing, they're now being incentivized subconsciously to continue to go out and purchase. Again, not saying you shouldn't purchase Warhammer. I love the hobby too much for that to be my argument point. I'm saying that it needs to be done in moderation. There needs to be some sort of self-control here. And of course, many people in this hobby lack said self-control. If a person is purchasing beyond their means, this is my biggest concern. If they're purchasing beyond their means, okay, and they're foregoing things like paying their bills, if they have a mortgage, not paying their mortgage off, for example, because they wanted to buy a new Corn army, and you're sitting there praising them, is that not a more toxic situation? You are praising the addict for their addiction. That is the concern here. It's not that people can't buy their models and show them off, but to put this another way, if they want to say, I'm starting a Corn army, I'm so happy to do so, they could just show a picture of their codex for all it mattered, and it would achieve the same goal. Posting this many boxes is a flex. It is them trying to overwhelm the community with the sheer amount of purchases they are doing. And this sort of thing only works for a new release. because you will not see this sort of praise occur for something that has been in circulation for a long time. So a good example of this would be something like a Primarch in Horus Heresy. If you're the first one, or one of the first ones out there to release your Horus Ascended painted miniature, doesn't matter how badly painted it is, because I saw quite a few of those, of subpar Horuses that people got early because they are in with Games Workshop, they got given a model and semi-ruined it, but they get a ton of likes. And the reason they got that praise was because they got it out there early, and the community is sort of wowed in a way to see it. And then both sides get some sort of validation out of this bizarre cycle. But if that same person was to post that same subpar paint job of Horus 2 years later, they'd get nothing. And it's just a funny little situation, I notice. So have a look at some of these here. This was one person bragging about their Christmas haul one year. How disconnected are these miniatures? Caradon Overlords from Age of Sigmar. You have Tau Riptide Battlesuit and Tau Fire Warriors 40k. There are Eldar Guardians, Dire Avengers, and Wraith Knight from 40k. There are Chimera and Lehman Russ from the Imperial Guard range. There are Space Marine Devastators, Grey Knight Paladins, a Blood Angels Tactical Squad. This is all over the place. And 10 bases, because that'll go far, or 20 bases from a city fight basis. This haul is all over the shop. This is a person who perhaps has relatives who purchase for them, or they purchase all this for themselves. Who knows? All they said was it was their Christmas haul. And they've just collected a bunch of assorted crap here. There is no way known this person is actually effectively creating an army out of each of these and playing them and building them and painting them simultaneously. We also see hordes like this. This is a person talking about this is their pile of shame. Well, look how big this pile of shame has grown. They've gone to the point of pulling many of these kits out of the boxes, but like I've stated many times in the past, people overcommit on the initial purchase. Get the miniatures home, start to go through the long process of actually building them and painting them, and discover they are not attached to that part of the process, and you end up with this. Boxes where they've been opened, the sprues have been tampered with in some way, they've pulled a couple of bits off here and there, started building the models, and then just gone, I just can't be fucked. And this is where they end up. Unhealthy habit. Okay? A haul like this. Yeah, maybe this person is an aftermarket reseller, I don't know, but the fact is some of these boxes are open. The packaging is removed, and you can see in the background there's a kitchenette. So clearly it's someone's residential property here. Looks like a bathtub or something to the left. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, right? To be both opened and unopened. And it's concerning because people want to sit here and say, hey, it is normal to have these sort of things. And it's not. And we shouldn't be normalizing the behavior. We should not be giving praise to people for this. We shouldn't be just putting it under the blanket statement of it's their hobby and we should be happy for them and giving them excuses like, they probably just want to show off their new purchase. If they want to show off their purchase, okay, I can kind of get alongside with that, like being happy to do something. But this whole mentality of, well, you can't say, now you need to paint it, or now you need to play with it, or whatever it might be, because you could throw them off their hobby. I want to know some actual numbers here on how many people are so weak-minded that when they're actually held accountable for their purchase, like, well, now you've got to do something with it beyond purchasing it, they go, ooh, that's not really what I signed up for here. Like, who are these people? Seriously. Because I've not really seen that. And like I said, I'm concerned that there are people who have significant emotional baggage. Okay, they might have a lack of emotional support in their lives. They could have some sort of impairment or disorder. There are people who have problems with willpower and purchasing. These people are preyed upon actively by corporations. In this case, it could be Games Workshop, but Games Workshop is not the villain here. They are hyped up by media and marketing to purchase, and they are trying to fill these emotional voids in their life through their purchasing. That concerns me. And it's not so much a case of, hey, Macca, you should just be praising them and just be happy for them and let them hobby their way. I feel like if I don't say something, I'm kind of to blame here too, because I am lucky enough to be privileged to have a platform where, at least a couple of thousand people are going to hear my message on video. If I'm not using that for some form of good to say to people, like, you need to strongly consider how your purchasing impacts on your life, then I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. It's part of how, the same thing, people will come onto my page and say, well, he's just posting all of this and these sort of topics for rage clicks because he wants ad revenue, because he wants money off YouTube. Guys, I've knocked back that many sponsorships and that many deals and partnerships from different agencies, from different companies that are trying to shill their products, especially mobile games, because I consider them predatory, because it goes against my moral compass. And this is me again trying to demonstrate my moral compass to you, because I'm telling you where I foresee the problem here. And to have people go, oh, it's just trying to farm rage clicks. If I want to farm clicks, the easiest way to farm clicks isn't through rage. It's by saying what you want to hear. And nobody wants to hear that your spending habits could be unhealthy, that you're buying a little bit too much in one sitting and then failing to accomplish anything with it. That would be unhealthy. I might look at an army like this one on screen right now and go, that's not actually that big a purchase, that bad, in theory. But then you realize, hang on, you've got Space Wolves, you've got Raven Guard, or Raven Wing, sorry. There's also some White Scars miniatures in the background there that are unpainted or partly painted on their painting bench. This person's purchases are all over the place. This is not one homogeneous army that they've bought. This is a bit of everything. Because if they were playing Space Wolves, they'd be something like Wolfguard Terminators or something, right? Or maybe they're just buying whole boxes for conversion bits. Either way, it's a problem. And we're seeing these sort of patterns repeated again and again and again. And so, yeah, I think people, especially on the internet, the naysayers of the naysayer, the people who are going against the message I'm trying to speak here, they're doing it for two reasons that concern me. One is that it's just easy to go along with it and just say it's their hobby and there's no problem and it doesn't affect my life, and therefore I can just give them praise or ignore it. Okay, so that's sort of an argument of ignorance. If I don't see a problem or I don't involve myself in it, things are fine. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. I think another thing that they could be doing is they get their own sense of self-satisfaction from white knighting for other people's bad spending habits. I think that's a legitimate phenomena where we see people come on to pages and say, why are you shaming them? Just let them enjoy their hobby. Because they get to pat themselves on the back going, yeah, I did a good thing. Fuck, I'm a good person. Yeah, Macca, what an asshole. But me, not me, no, I'm a good guy because I stood up for the person who's obsessive compulsive. But let me ask you this. If a person went out, they're in a minimum end job, they barely can make ends meet, okay? They're skipping meals one night a week. I mean, what is the percentage in the UK? Something like 12% of families have skipped at least one whole meal, like one whole day of eating per week to make ends meet. If a person is living in that sort of situation, they just went out and bought a bunch of Warhammer, and you're sitting there patting them on the back for it and enabling the behavior, do you not think that is far, far worse than calling them out for the behavior? Because if we call them out, there is at least a chance, okay? And it needs to be called out respectfully. You don't just say, what'd you purchase all this for, you idiot? Like, no. It has to be respectful. Have to treat people with dignity. So you can't just call them out for it, treat them like crap. But if we call them out in a respectful, kind way, maybe we can help them to do the right thing. And the right thing is not to go cold turkey and purchase nothing. The hobby is there to be enjoyed. It can bring great happiness and create for you a social environment, a new social circle you might not have had access to otherwise. And that is a great thing. But if a person cannot do so in a safe manner, safe mentally, financially, security wise, whatever it might be, if they can't do so, then there is a problem. Okay. And it's like any addiction. It could be gambling, it could be overeating, it could be, who knows? Okay. There are so many different addictions out there: drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, that people use to fill voids in their life, perceived or otherwise. So, with people's impulse purchasing, rather than giving them likes and thumbs up when they post one of these, I don't know, clout chasing posts of "check out my Christmas haul," give them nothing. You don't need to attack them, and you don't need to praise them. Just give them nothing, because the problem will go away on its own. Okay, if they're just happy with their purchase and just want to show it off to people, they don't need to get feedback for that. They don't need to get likes and comments and yada yada. In fact, if you buy a big purchase like one of these corn forces here, there was nothing stopping the person from just posting a picture of the codex and going, "I bought a corn army today. Looking forward to reading this book, and I can't wait to play this army." That would be a perfectly acceptable form of doing this post, I think. But when a person flexes by posting so many kits at once, uh, it can't be right, okay? This is thousands of dollars, at least in Australia. I think this army here is probably about $2,000, over 2.5, actually, of Warhammer. I'm in a pretty good paying job, okay? My wife's in a pretty good paying job. I'm not worried about people spending this because I'm jealous of what I can't afford. I can easily afford it. In fact, I think I've had to say this twice in repeated videos because people keep bringing this point up. Well, you're just jealous. No, not jealous at all. I just couldn't conceive of spending this much in one hit. I think the biggest purchase I ever did was I purchased an absolute about $3,000 worth of Forge World that I lived off for many years on many projects, after I discharged from the military, and I had a bunch of leave that I had saved paid out. And I used a lot of that money because Forge World was very cheap at the time, thanks to the Australian dollar riding very high. And because I knew I was going to be collecting multiple heresy armies and building up quite big legions, that made a lot of sense to me. And when I got all those miniatures, I didn't just take $3,000 worth of Forge World, lay it out on the floor, and then take a photo of just dozens and dozens of, well, at the time they were like little Ziploc bags, and now they're in blister packs, but I didn't just take photos of it all and throw it out to the internet because there is no achievement in there, okay? What I did was I said, okay, these models have been deliberately purchased with the goal in mind that they're going to be used over multiple legions over several years, and I stuck to that goal. Okay, I'm only just running out of the very last of those items today. To me, that was a healthy way of spending, but it was something I only did once in my life. Once. The next biggest individual purchase I made would have been when I started my Thousand Suns Legion project, when their upgrades finally dropped alongside Betrayal at Kelth. And I bought 2 sets of Betrayal at Kelth. Count it, just 2. With Thousand Suns shoulder and head upgrades, and I think torsos as well, for them. Enough to do all 60 plastic tactical marines that came with it, as well as a pair of Thousand Suns Contemptor Dreadnoughts, a set of Flamers, and a set of Volkite Culverins. That was the second biggest purchase I ever made of Warhammer. And this is as someone who is got 2 properties, okay, I own 2 houses. This is someone who has a well-paying job, who ran a factory for years, whose wife is also in a well-paying job. So if I'm only spending that and can justify that, it blows my mind how there are people out there who are spending $2,000-$3,000 on a 40k army with, in this case, is what, 2 dozen models? and they're, thumbs up, yeah, I made a good choice here. That concerns me. It really does, because you got to look out for your fellow hobbyists, okay? You don't want people, especially like the biggest fear comes to my mind is people get suicidal because they don't get the validation they are seeking. Because for some people, this is their only form of socialization they get. Okay, they haven't got a friendship circle. They only have buying stuff and showing it off on the internet. And we're feeding into that. We're telling the anorexic it's okay to not eat food. That worries me greatly, okay? Anyway, probably droned on too long, so I'm just going to cut it away there. But, guys, look at your spending habits and your piles of shame. This took me literally 2 minutes to pull these pictures off the internet. Okay? Look at your piles of shame. Work through what you've got. When you decide you want to buy something, wait a week. It'll still be there. And if it's not, if you're worried it's not going to be there in a week's time, you're buying into FOMO, fear of missing out. And companies prey upon that. And all of this is amplified by influencers who are out there telling you how good something is and just convincing you that it's a good idea. And I think that might even be why people do post some of these images, because they want someone to confirm to them that, it was a good idea. I was smart when I made this purchase of thousands of dollars worth of models, because it might not have been smart. Anyway, back with the outer circle. Thank you all for watching. Thoughts and feedback below, and I'll see you all on the next video.